Welcome everyone. We're here today discussing pragmatic outsourcing strategies with Wayne McCartney from Bricoleur Technologies. First off, Wayne, what's your background?
So I've been doing outsourcing for about 10 years now. We've built remote teams in the Philippines in that time. We've had clients such as banks, telcos, mortgage processing, customer service call centres. It's been an interesting journey, but we've learned a lot of things along the way.
So what is Bricoleur?
So the word bricoleur at its simplest level means a builder. It's French for builder. But it has connotations of pragmatic solutions using the things that are around. So we don't over-engineer a solution. We work with you, we look at the context of your operations, the size you are, the level of sophistication you want to be at. And then we build a solution for you that's pragmatic and aligned to that.
Okay, so for those that are new to outsourcing, what is outsourcing?
So outsourcing is where you engage another company, generally offshore, it's implicitly offshore, to work with your business. It's around business processes, so BPO is business process outsourcing. So you've got the concept of remote team, you've got the concept of partnering with someone. There are sort of two models. You can have a sort of an arm's length model, which generally doesn't work, or you can have a model where you view the additional staff that you have as an extension of your own team. And if you start off with that in mind, you'll get a lot further, a lot more quickly, and it will be sustainable.
So why outsource? What are the business drivers to do that?
There's a few business drivers. Cost reduction is an obvious one, and it's why most people start looking at it. A better way of looking at it is to say, let's free up headspace from our existing staff. So if you've got customer service staff, what should they be doing? They should be working with customers. If there's routine administrative tasks that take them away from that, then there's a great opportunity to outsource those activities. We have clients that talk to us about how expensive their offices are in Melbourne or Sydney or Brisbane. They're growing, they need to expand, they can, their business capacity and their planning says we need to have this many bums on seats, and we have an office this big and we don't want to upgrade. And so again, offshoring or outsourcing can be a solution there. As you get more sophisticated, you can actually start to think, and you walk, I do it myself, you walk around and you say, why are we doing this here? We could be doing this in the Philippines. And there's an opportunity actually to build, not just to think about cost centres, but to think about profit centres. So can we do exemplary customer service out of the Philippines? Of course we can. Okay, what would that look like? And so simply thinking, I need to save costs is simplistic, right? But doing things well and scaling, that's where you can really leverage outsourcing.
So how would a company get started with outsourcing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've seen clients where they've, spent a lot of time planning, building out this model, doing it all on paper, and then, when reality hits the road, they work out it doesn't work. Yeah. So when you think about it, if you are introducing a new team member and it's simply, and you're also changing people's roles, then there's a change management element to that. And so it actually makes sense to start to bring the offshoring into that mix. You won't know until you road test it what's going to work. So you sort of start small. So a good way to look at it is, and this is one strategy we've seen work well, is to look at customer service people and office administrative people. And it's 80-20. Look at the stuff that they're doing that adds zero value, right?
Yeah.
Start there. Peel off a bit, and you may find that if you take some work here, some work here, some work here, look at how you could restructure that into a role, possibly as a full-time position. It doesn't need to be. You can do things sort of on a part-time or pay-as-you-go basis. But it's a good place to get started. A great example is the top 4 accounting firms in Australia. They started with just the lowest level stuff, and then they layered on top of that. So then they moved up to tax, advisory, compliance, risk. And over time, you've got an entire vertical stack of skill sets sitting offshore.
Excellent. So what kind of work can be outsourced?
Look, it's a highly skilled workforce in the Philippines. We recruit professional customer service people, we recruit software developers, we recruit software testing, we recruit for technical support, desktop support, product support, and then you can start moving into more specialised skill sets such as accounts, loan processing, computer-aided design in the architecture industry. It's a global workforce, and pretty much, you know, if you need a skill set, then you're going to have people over there that are working.
So it covers a wide range of skill sets.
Yeah, absolutely. And we get asked all the time, could you do blah? And we say, oh, what was one recently? Chinese-speaking loan processing staff. Go looking for them? Yes, they exist, yeah. So it doesn't hurt to just ask the question, say, if we were to do blah, what would that look like? Would we have skill set there? How much training would be involved? And you go from there.
And so people are probably wondering, how do you ensure the quality of work?
Yeah, it's a good question. The simple answer is it's no different than how you ensure the quality of the work in your Australian office, with the exception that, you know, you can't walk around someone's desk and look over their shoulder. So you do need to think about the kinds of processes you have in place. And part of it is about having processes, part of it is looking at lines of reporting, and part of it is also looking at, you know, if you give someone the work, a task to do, you need to also give them the authority and the autonomy. If you build a totally command and control structure where everything is sort of micromanaged, then every time you're going to be continuously looking at work, and, you know, when there's a question, the question's going to come back to you. So that's something you need to design in to start with. But that's no different than if you were adding new staff in, you know, in your local office.
Yeah, excellent. So people are going to be thinking about security. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, it's very similar. Apply the same security protocols that you have for your existing staff. If staff are accessing your systems and you control them, you have full visibility of what they're doing. And with cloud software, it's very doable. Staff will have national security clearance and local security clearances, reference checks. We train our staff on the Australian Privacy Act, for instance. So, you know, most privacy breaches are probably unintentional. Yeah. And so if you can train for that, and we do annual top-ups, there's always a concern about those people over there, you know, what are they doing? If you design for that, then you work out that it's actually no different than the Australian context. You can, and we've seen clients where you can get monitoring software, and that may be as simple, you know, it's not very intrusive, but to take a random snapshot periodically of what the staff member's doing. Yeah. And so that helps you sleep at night, you know, and it probably also just keeps the staff member mindful that, you know, they do need to be working on what they're working on. Yeah.
Definitely. So you spoke before about larger businesses using outsourcing, but how about smaller businesses? Is there a business that's too small to outsource?
No, there's not. In fact, for solopreneurs now, there's a trend to get a VA, a virtual assistant. You need a VA, and that can be that can be appointment setting. It could be helping out with general administrative tasks, and that works well for you know, micro businesses. Yeah. We actually also are exploring a model where you can have not just a VA but a virtual team. So rather than having one person that sort of follows you around and does stuff, and if they're busy then they can't be working on something else, you can dial into multiple skill sets. So you might have a customer service person, you might have an accounts person that helps you out. You know, there's a spike at end of month when you do invoicing. They keep you zero up to date, but you only pay for what you use. So no, there's no limit. And it really comes down to, at that that level of business, about thinking about the value of your time. So let's say you're a company of one. If your billable rate is, let's pick a number, $120 an hour, and you can be invoicing at $20 an hour or doing customer service at $15 an hour, why would you do it yourself?
Yeah.
And so, you know, as a small micro business, you're only as, you know, your revenue and your time is the cap.
Yeah.
And no matter how efficient you are, there will be a cap. So how do you work past that cap? You know, again, outsourcing is a strategy to start to generate more throughput and maximise the value of your time. So it's a really effective strategy for really small businesses. You know, the comment we get is, "Oh, we should have done this years ago."
Years ago, yeah. So what are the outsourcing staff like?
Outsourcing staff are great. Look, I would actually say if you're serious about it and can justify the time, you know, take a trip to the Philippines or wherever you're looking at outsourcing and get a feel for on the ground for yourself.
So you can visit that.
Absolutely, recommended, if you want to get further quicker and really make it stick, then invest that time. So traffic is a force of nature, right? But there's built environment there, and the staff we have, they're raising families, they're aspirationally, they have mortgages, they're putting their kids through college, they drive better cars than I do sometimes, or they sit in traffic in better cars than I do. These are normal, so you know, you won't notice a difference.
Yeah. And so what should you look for in an outsourcing company?
I think the first and most important thing is that it's right sized. So there are some really big companies and there are some really small companies. It's no different than working with people. Can we work with this company? Do they fit us? Do they fit our ethos? How flexible are they? How structured are they? So, you know, I think you imagine how you want the engagement to work, and then you sort of find a company that can scale as you scale, but also has the flexibility if you're smaller. You know, you don't. If you go with an outsourcing company that has 500 and 1,000 seat clients, and you've got 2 staff, then the level of attention you'll get and the level of assistance you'll get will be, you know, proportionate. That's the main thing. You want to think about whether they have someone locally. It helps if you, particularly initially while you're getting set up, if someone can help you out at the local end as well as the remote end, and you know, you've then got some peace of mind that if there is an issue and, you know, you do need to sort things out at an account level, there's someone locally that you can, you know, work with and talk to, and it means your contract is probably in a local jurisdiction rather than, you know, you've got a contract with a company that's, you know, on the other side of the equation.
So Bricoleur is a distributed company. Can you explain what that means?
Distributed company means by default staff work from home. So we have some staff that have particularly requested an office, and we can facilitate that. We've done that. But generally staff would work from home. We find it gives you better productivity, more motivated staff, less downtime, less absenteeism, and distributed the risk of your BPO going offline because there's an earthquake or a typhoon, etc. You know, you're mitigating for that risk. Manila traffic is a force of nature, and so you'll have staff that would traditionally be commuting 2.5 hours one way, and you'll find that it doesn't take much for something to go wrong with traffic or weather, and then you're having an attendance issue and disciplinary conversations with staff for circumstances that are massively out of their control. I wouldn't underestimate the impact of carbon monoxide poisoning on an employee's ability to work on any given day. You spend 2.5 hours in Manila traffic, And I've experienced that.
Yeah.
You end up with the symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning. A distributed company, all of that disappears. You wake up, you do stuff with your family, you work, you're productive, you're refreshed, you haven't spent 2.5 hours breathing carbon monoxide fumes, and so it changes the way people approach their job. It definitely increases productivity.
Yeah. So finally, what are your tips for successful outsourcing?
Start small, I think, and chunk away at it. It's a journey. It's not so big bang isn't necessarily going to work. Invest early in training, whether that's remote training, going over, working with your staff, or bringing staff over here also works well. And as the team matures, it's probably a good option. Start with the low-hanging fruit. Pay attention to the change management and think about that at both ends. And then a big one is, and where we see people sometimes come unstuck, is if you're going to give someone a job to do, then you need to give them the tools, but also the authority and the autonomy to do that job. Yeah. Okay. So, and that involves trust, and that's no different than if you were in Australia working with Australian staff, or working with teams offshore. If you're going to ask someone to do something, then you've got to give them the wherewithal to get the job done, and then they will.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Wayne. Some great tips and information about outsourcing today.
Thanks, Gwendolyn. Pleasure.